Dr. Chief, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Was there any discussion on the search committee about a concern maybe that you were hiring an administrator for one of your biggest rivals?
I think you always, when you in a search for any particular position, go after the very best person in the country that you can go after and try to convince them to come here. And so that was not a consideration.
Dave, how big a factor was it that the Tennessee's NCAA problems were behind them, that the resolutions have been handed down?
It's a very good question, but it really wasn't a factor. I got that word probably the same time you all did from a national perspective. Obviously, the Chancellor and people here at the university knew. And I thought, and I'm being very candid about it, that was a very fair result. That was a result that I thought was very fair given the circumstances. And I think you're seeing a shift within the NCAA in that regard. But no, it didn't have a factor.
Dave, you mentioned the job that Mike Hamilton did and you were addressing the NCAA. So what do you see as your biggest task once you arrive?
I think bringing everybody back on the same path. And I know the history, and I'm aware that there are still wounds out there for a variety of reasons. But I think that's not where your focus should be. Your focus should be on getting those people back, moving toward. They all love Tennessee to the fullest degree possible. They all love Tennessee. So I think that's one of the first priorities, is to reach out to everyone who's meant so much to this university and helped build that aura that I just articulated a moment ago.
Dr. Cheek, you talked, I think, a couple months ago here about just bringing Tennessee back to stability. I mean, is that the feeling right now, or is it still going to take some time to kind of have this stability?
We're on the right path upwards. We've got the NCAA violation out. As Dave said, they took our penalties, did not impose any additional penalties, and commended the institution for what we did to cooperate with them in that whole process. And we're very pleased that they did not impose any other penalties. And so we got that history behind us. What we got to do is look at the future, and I think our future on the academic side and the athletic side is very positive. And I think having this last piece, the new Vice Chancellor and Director of Athletics, is a critical part so that he and his team can focus on being the very best athletic program we can in the country, and at the same time, the very best academic program that we can have in the country.
Will Joan's role still be the same as planned before, that she'll stay on as women's director until next year?
That is correct. That is correct. That was decided back when she graciously accepted the offer to be Vice Chancellor and Athletic Director. That was a very key part, I think, in this whole process. And some people say, well, why did you put the word Vice Chancellor and Director of Athletics? Because I wanted to make sure that everybody understood that there's an academic component of athletics and there's an athletic component of athletics. And she served on the cabinet ever since I became in charge of athletics. And I think this Vice Chancellor role is just ideal. And I think when I talked to Dave about this job, he said that's one of the things that attracted me about it, that you changed it to Vice Chancellor, and that's a very important step, and he fully subscribes to that.
Dave, do you plan on bringing anybody with you? Is someone you might be working with at Alabama already, or somebody from here?
You know, there's a lot of discussion and ground to be traveled relative to building a leadership team. And I think this, and I feel very strongly about this, you know, that what separates really good corporations, really good organizations from great ones, it always comes back to people, always. You look at an athletic team, you name the sport, that might be struggling, and suddenly new coaches infused into the program, same players, different result, better result. Corporations will tell you that. It always comes back to people. There'll be a very fair assessment process to go through, and then we'll make those types of decisions. And I feel very fortunate to have Joan here. I've known Joan a long time, and Joan's an outstanding administrator and highly respected. And it's good to have Joan as a sounding board, as well as other people in the department. But we'll put together, as Dr. Witt said, the best leadership team we possibly can. Yeah, Cheek. Excuse me. As Chancellor Cheek said, Dr. Witt will feel good about that, though I have him on my mind. But we'll put together an outstanding leadership team, and the Chancellor's committed to supporting that.
David, if you had a chance to talk to any of the coaches, and what are your thoughts of stepping into a program where you've got 3 relatively new coaches?
I think it's exciting. I think they're, you could look down the road 5 years and be talking about 3 of the greatest coaches in the country. So, I think you've got 3 young people who have all the right things that you need to be successful in terms of their priorities, the way they organize. They're going to be demanding in a positive way. I think the future can be very, very bright in that regard, and so I think that's an exciting element of taking this position. I have not, to answer your question, I have not had a chance to get face-to-face with those coaches, but that's a priority for tomorrow.
With those coaches, Dave, how do you view your responsibility in each particular sport? Because you have somebody, especially in Derek Dooley, who very involved, knows what he wants, and driven. Are you hands off, or how do you view what you do for a particular sport?
I really enjoy building relationships with coaches and creating an open line of communication with coaches. I really enjoyed Nick Saban, and I've said that for 3 years. And when I came back to Alabama, and Mal said, I want you to spend 15, 20 minutes with Nick, we about tripled that. In that conversation, I really admire Nick Saban. Here's what Nick Saban wants. Here's what Derek Dooley wants, and here's what Dave Hart wants. Excellence all around them, from everybody, from the custodial staff, who plays a key role and never get enough credit, but I take time to make sure they understand what a role they play, all the way through the assistant coaches, the administration. Excellence, and that's the tone that has to be set.
David, you talked about learned from your previous 2 establishments of the leadership and those things, the committee that you talked about from your previous stops that you bring here. What do you take from those first 2 experiences here?
Very good question. I think in the arena of organization, I think developing that staff, you have to have an organizational chart that makes sense, and that takes some time to figure out. But I have an idea there, and one that has worked in the past. So I think from those experiences, I've grown a lot. And that's what the profession's about. For coaches, for student athletes, for administrators, is growth. Now, you're not going to grow if you can't make tough decisions. And you're not going to grow as a young administrator if somebody doesn't give you the authority to do your job. I'm not a micromanager. Don't want to be micromanaged. I want to play my role, and I know what the role is of the athletics department. Athletics has never been, should not be, and never will be the most important thing on a university campus. But it is absolutely the most visible element within that university structure. So with that comes accountability, responsibility from everybody who touches the athletics department at the University of Tennessee, because that's how people form their impression and come to the image that they want to apply to the university, unfortunately, is not through the many great things the university has going on in many cases, but it's driven by the image that is demonstrated by the Department of Athletics.